Tattoos were never just decoration, and their rise was never random. They are a living reflection of a civilization becoming increasingly unable to move on. Not because humanity is becoming more expressive, but because it is becoming more identified with memory. And memory, when mistaken for identity, becomes a prison. This is the deeper structure behind what is happening. Because life was never designed to be lived through the past. Reality only exists in the present moment. That is where creation happens. That is where freedom exists. And that is how and where the soul naturally moves. Through experience, not into attachment. Because the soul does not hold on to life. It moves with it completely. Because it never believes it has lost control. It never believes it is trapped. And because of that, it never becomes stuck inside any experience. It moves through it fully, then continues forward. But under seeing is believing, a human being loses that mobility because fear strips away the sense of authority. And once authority is given away, change no longer feels possible. Recreation no longer feels real. So instead of moving forward, the human being loops backward, reliving, revisiting, re-identifying, not living in reality, but in reference to what happened, to who hurt them, to what they survived, to what they lost, to what they once were. And over time, memory becomes identity. That is why humanity has become obsessed with the past, because when you believe something else controls you, you no longer feel capable of becoming new. So instead of recreating self, you preserve self, you archive self, you brand self. And that is exactly what a tattoo is, a permanent mark of identification with memory. Not because people consciously choose slavery, but because fear-based consciousness cannot fully release what it believes still defines it. This is why tattoos have become mainstream, not within a subculture, but everywhere, because humanity has reached the point where what was unconscious is now surfacing collectively. Everything is being brought to the surface. All the unresolved emotion, all the fixation, all the attachment, all the identities built from experience instead of presence. And the body has become the canvas for that revelation. This is not a condemnation, it's just exposure. Because the phenomenon itself reveals the structure beneath it, the reason it is really happening. Fear is the principle of slavery, and seeing is believing is the system through which that slavery is maintained. In this case, through fixation, through keeping the human being connected to what has already happened. But if you remain identified with the past, you cannot fully enter the present. And if you cannot fully enter the present, you cannot truly recreate. You can only relive. That is why the modern obsession with memory is not freedom. It is evidence of a civilization struggling to move. But the soul was never designed to remain trapped inside experience. It was designed to move through life freely, to experience, to create, to release, and then continue. This does not demean the experience. It's just that the soul never turns meaning into a fixed identity. That's the difference. And now, as seeing is believing begins to collapse, humanity is being forced to confront just how much of itself has been built from attachment instead of presence. Because the future cannot be entered through fixation, only through freedom. And freedom has never existed in the past, only now. Humanity is moving through a collective correction in perception that will shape the foundation of its reality. To understand the structural architecture behind this correction, why it is unfolding, why it is irreversible, and why it is not a philosophy but a governing structure. It is mapped in the book, The Meaning of Life.